Hi and welcome to this video where we're going to cover patch 12.12 and the most common matchups that occurred during it. This is just a brief overview of what the meta was, and yeah, this is kind of interesting to look at sometimes because you really don't think about, how these matchups are going. You just see that they happen often. You're like, oh, well, yeah, usually X champion beats Y champion. Obviously, this is all within a vacuum. We're not taking into account player skill, team skill, itemization, jungle proximity, all that jazz. This is just straight up in a vacuum. The only matchups here are ones that are double digits because obviously, small sample sizes, so there has to be a minimum, and double digits is the minimum. So, if you are new to this channel, by the way, go to the Discord. The Discord link is in the description, as well as a Patreon link if you're into esports betting. Now, so top lane, 31 champions picked on patch 12.12 that played top lane. The most common matchup was Gangplank versus Gnar. Gnar winning 52% of the time. And now you're going to see a trend that you see here. 23 times Sejuani was against Gnar. Gnar would win that 61% of the time. 18 times Gwen was played into Gnar. Gnar would win that 72% of the time. So Gnar is the first pick, and then whatever the hell you want to pick into it is probably losing. We did see some teams pick a Sylas. Sylas doing well. A couple other champions also did okay against Gnar, but people weren't playing them often. A lot of people just defaulted to Sejuani, Gangplank, and Gwen. And in the cases of the Sejuani and Gwen, it struggled. At least Gangplank was close to 50-50, where, a 72% win rate between Gwen and Gnar is pretty significant, especially when we think about how good Gwen is. Two other matchups that occurred quite a bit. 8 times we saw Ornn versus Gnar. Ornn was a solid pick oftentimes as a tank. And Gwen versus Gangplank happened 8 times in the instance of Gnar was banned. A lot of people would pick GP, and then you pick whatever you want into GP. For the jungle, 27% of the time, 27% of the time, 27 times, just like last patch, it was Viego versus Wukong determining the meta. We had 25 different teams. I almost said players, I said teams, but I really mean champions. 25 champions picked in the jungle across the 4 major regions on 12-12. Viego won 56% of the time against Wukong. 15 times people picked Lee Sin into Viego. Lee Sin, 53% win rate over Viego. So Viego, losing to Lee Sin a bit, beating Wukong a bit. 13 times we saw Poppy into Wukong. Poppy winning 54% of the time. And then we also saw Xin Zhao into Viego. 11 times Xin Zhao winning 6 of those. So pretty much 50-50 coin flip. But you look into a situation where it was really, pick whatever you want to pick in the jungle and we'll see what happens. It wasn't very strong win rates one way or the other. More so player skill determining who won, as well as various other factors that would occur to sway a matchup. Unlike top, where top it was the Gnar show. In mid, normally we don't have many double-digit mid matchups. That's just commonplace. 21 different mids picked. Sylas versus Azir happened the most, 13 times. Sylas winning 77% of them. Now, Corki versus Azir, 12 times. Corki would win 67%. So a lot of people picking Azir during 12-12, but really Azir stunk. Against Corki and Sylas, those are significant losing. When you were picking Azir, you were probably losing if you had Sylas or Corki left up. Pretty significant. Those significant win rates. 9 times we saw Corki versus Ahri, Taliyah versus Ahri, and Taliyah versus Sylas. Now, in the instance of Sylas, overall on 12-12, it went 21-7 against Azir, Taliyah, and Akali combined. And there was not a single champion that beat it twice. That played it twice, it had over a 50-50 win rate. That had a winning win rate. Like, Sylas beat everything, and the only times it lost was if somebody picked something once into it, and Sylas didn't play that champion again throughout the patch. So, Sylas was an extremely strong pick. I just want to make sure I'm still on the screen. I am. So, Sylas, very, very good pick on 12-12, and continues to be should be first pick on 12-13. In bot, we saw Kalista versus Aphelios. 30 times. That was a draw, 15 to 15. It was swayed one way in the beginning parts of 12-12, but as the LCK played it down the stretch, they were able to even it out. So we saw that 30 times and it went 15 and 15. 28 times we saw Jinx versus Aphelios. Aphelios winning 61%. Aphelios was very dominant this patch, actually. Kalista obviously being 50-50. We saw 18 bot laners picked, but Aphelios has the edge over Jinx, and then Aphelios had the edge over Senna in the instance that Senna versus Aphelios played each other 12 times. Aphelios winning 9 of those matchups. I did the math. 9 and 3. So Aphelios was very strong. Kalista obviously being an early game champ with a lot of utility, but not usually dealing a lot of damage like the Aphelios or the Jinx for that matter. 9 times we saw Zeri versus Twitch. Excuse me. Zeri obviously banned a lot. People would pick the Twitch into it though, the Jinx, sometimes an Ezreal, occasionally a Tristana. But Zeri obviously is banned more often than not because she is so OP. So we didn't see a lot of Zeri. Support, we had 31 supports, which kind of, for the first time, my support portion does not have a lot of double-digit matchups to go over. 16 times we saw TK versus Renata. TK coming out ahead 56% of the time. 10 times Nautilus versus Renata would occur. Renata going 7 and 3. And then 9 times we saw the Enchanter matchup of Lulu versus Nami, whether that was Twitch Lulu, Zeri Lulu, Cog Lulu, Nami, and Lucian. I mean, that's that pick, right? Lucian, Nami, that's the lane. And then 8 times Amumu versus Renata. People go Aphelios Renata versus Amumu Kalista, vice versa. That's kind of the deal. In support, not a lot of Leona, which is nice. Braum kind of dropping out of Prio. Renata is oftentimes banned. If she wasn't, she was picked, and people picked TK or Nautilus into it. But Nautilus was losing quite a bit, so they probably should have picked other things into it. Nevertheless, that is the coverage of 12-12 as we move on to 12-13. All 4 major regions should be on it as of tomorrow. LCK should be on it. If they're not, this video came out prematurely, and the LCK completely boggles my mind on why they didn't move to the next patch with the other major regions. Expect my 12-14 video probably next week, Tuesday, because I imagine 12-14 will be on the Western regions next week. Not this week, but the next week, I would guess. So that video will come out then. If you missed the roundup earlier today, that came out. JDG and Victory 5 played. LNG and EDG played. And we went over the games for tomorrow. But nevertheless, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy this content. If you did, share it with your friends. Share it with whoever you want. Like the video if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel. And thank you for watching.